What's up, YouTube? On this episode of Coddiwomple Garage, we're going to talk about what it takes to stop a set of big tires like this. As we've built our Jeep up, we've put bigger tires on it, things like that, and we have found a few shortcomings in our build. When you put big tires like 37s on any vehicle and you use stock brakes, it's not going to stop as well. There's a lot of rotational mass there, and you've got to be able to stop it. The only way you can do that is to increase your leverage or increase your clamping power on your brakes. And that's where we're going to do both with what we've got over here in the box. What we ended up buying was the Big Brake Conversion Kit from Powerstop Brakes. It's all four rotors, it's all four calipers, it's all four caliper brackets, and new brake lines. So the Jeep is going to get new brakes from the frame out. The Big Brake Kit from Powerstop comes very well packaged, and it comes complete. You can get it in two different versions. The first version you can get comes with the rotors, the caliper brackets, and the new ceramic brakes. It also comes with all the new hardware that you need. You get both the front and the rear rotors and all of the hardware, caliper brackets and everything. Or you can go all out, and that's what we decided to do. Since our Jeep has a little over 140,000 miles on it, we decided that it was time to go ahead, let's just do the whole thing, get new calipers, new brake lines and everything. And that's where the complete Big Brake Conversion Kit comes in. You get this third box with new calipers and new lines and everything. Now this is the real start of the Big Brake Kit. What these are is Powerstop's oversized brake rotors. They're 14-inch rotors as opposed to the factory ones that are just a little bit over 11. They're drilled and slotted to dissipate heat, and it's the same way for the front and the rear. So we've got the Jeep jacked up, got it on jack stands. I'm going to do a little bit of pre-assembly on my caliper and my caliper bracket before we get it put on. I'll walk you through the steps of how to put all this together. I'll go through the list of the components that we've got here. Of course, we've got our caliper bracket, we've got our caliper pins, caliper bolts, our rubber grommets for our caliper pins. These are our mounting brackets for the upper part of our brake line, and then we have two of the rear shoes. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and load this caliper. The way you do that is you pop these little pins into your caliper bracket. There's one there. And these just clip on. You got your slides in and ready. Go ahead and put a little bit of the brake grease on there. It doesn't take a whole lot. Also, if you want to, you can put just a little bit on the ends of your brakes. Once the caliper bracket is loaded with the brake pads, we're going to go ahead and get ready to put the caliper on. These are the caliper brake pins, and normally you would want to put some type of anti-seize or lubricant on those, and on these it already has some from Powerstop. Between here and there is going to be this boot, and that's what's going to keep all the dirt and grime out of here and keep these pins protected and working as they should. So they just simply pop on your caliper pin there, and then you're going to slide them in. And they pop right over, and that's what holds your caliper pins in. Okay, now we're going to start putting the caliper onto the caliper bracket. Anytime you have metal touching metal or metal moving, it's always a good idea to put a little bit of lubricant on it, and we're going to do that right here around the caliper piston. After we get that lubricated, we're going to slide it onto the caliper bracket. The next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and put your brake bolts in. These come with a little bit of Loctite already pre-painted on them, so you can put a little bit more on there if you want to, or if your bolts doesn't have any, it's a good idea to put some Loctite on there so it don't come off. But since these already have some from Powerstop, we're going to go ahead and just put them in. Next, I'm going to go ahead and load up our brake line. It's easier to get to here. So we're going to take the little plunger out. You've got two different copper washers. One goes on the bolt just like that. See, this is a banjo bolt for the brake lines. Put that through the brake line. Put your other copper washer on the back side of that, so it's actually sandwiching your brake line. And then we're just going to thread it in. This may be a question you might have, is which one goes on which side? So the bleeder valve always goes to the top on whichever side that you're going to put the caliper on. If you put it on the bottom, then the air bubbles are not able to escape. So this one is going to set just like this for the passenger side, and this one will set just like this on the driver's side. That way we can get our brakes bled properly. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start disassembly of the brakes. Instead of taking the caliper completely off the caliper bracket and all of that, I'm just going to take the two 18mm bolts that hold the caliper bracket on and bring it all off as one assembly. So you may have a little bit of ridge on your rotor, and you might need to spread your caliper a little bit. So we're just going to take a screwdriver, just push it, caliper piston back just a little bit, and it literally falls right off. Next, you're going to want to use a brake spoon or a screwdriver to back your emergency brakes off so you can pull the rotor off. It's a good idea to go ahead and clean your emergency brake pads off. Replace them if you feel like they need to be. We're just going to spray everything down good, make sure everything's in good working order. Cut the rotors off, I can show you a comparison of what they really look like. This is the factory one. This is our Powerstop Big Brake Kit. Notice they're substantially bigger than what our stock ones are. There's a huge difference there. Now, one other thing that I want to point out with the Powerstop rotors is the fact that they are drilled and slotted, which means they are directional. So now you have to make sure and pay attention to where this is the passenger side and this is the driver's side. New rotor on, you want to make sure and spray off the brake surface. That way it gets any protective oils or anything that it's had during shipping your storage off. Once you got everything sprayed down, it's time to go ahead and put the rotor on. And now it's time to take the brake lines apart so we can put our new caliper on. You can tell this has got some time on it. It's been there for a while. Make sure you use a brake line wrench with these. It'll make it a whole lot easier. What I like to do is leave everything tight here before I break that loose. And I'll even use a hammer and just kind of shock it to get it broke loose rather than trying to force it. That shock load from the hammer hitting it makes things a whole lot easier to snap loose if they're rusted rather than just twisting it off. JK drop brackets for your brake lines is what came with the kit. They're from JKS. And with getting the new brake lines, they're extended brake lines, so we can put everything back up into the original location. Now we've sent after some parts and we're going to repair this brake line, but everything will be back up here in its original location when we're finished. Now that we have our loaded caliper ready to go with the caliper bracket, we're going to put a little bit of blue Loctite that's supplied on the caliper bracket bolts and go ahead and install those. Now that we have the new brake lines that are extended, we don't have to use those drop down brackets, and we can actually put the brake lines back up where they belong. Powerstop sends you new brackets to put in your brake lines. Now that we have our new bracket put on, we'll go ahead and put our brake line in place. Just slip it through there, and it's got a little groove that this U-clip goes into. Take a whole lot of pressure to put the U-clip in. Just tap it in with a hammer, and it's good to go. It's going to look like it's a little bit loose until you get your new brake line put in, and that'll tighten all this stuff up. Once the brake lines are all on the back, we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of brake fluid in and open the bleeder valves one at a time on the rear, starting with the farthest one away from the master cylinder, and bleed the brakes. There's plenty of other videos on YouTube about how to bleed the brakes, so I'm not going to bore you with that process. All right, we've got everything all buttoned up. Looks pretty good. We're going to do the same thing for the other three corners, and we'll get back with you after that. Okay, we've got it all wrapped up now. The only thing left is to break them in. Break-in process is 40 miles an hour to 10, 5 times, 35 miles an hour to 5 times, and then run it as long as you can without touching the brakes to let them cool down. It's 35. There's 40. Going. There's number 1. Two. I can feel them braking harder and harder every time. There's 35 to 5 for the next 5. There's 35. Now you may smell a little brake smell when you're doing this, but that's normal. Stop them. 3. 4. And this is the last one. On her nose. Now get your shit under me. Alright, now we're going to drive it and not touch the brakes for several miles. After driving this thing all day with the new brakes, they really work well. I'm super pleased with them. I would recommend a larger brake upgrade kit to anybody who is putting larger tires and adding extra load to their Overland vehicle. Let us know what you think and what you run in the comments below. Remember, like, share, and subscribe, and thanks again for watching Coddiwomple Overland. Until next time, see ya.